This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, you ever davened and your davening was never answered and you wonder why, and you wonder, you sit and you daven and you try and you speak and you're into it and you daven a good davening. Push it doesn't go. Chofetz Chaim says a very scary thing. Very, very scary. Very scary. He says the Heilige Chofetz Chaim Schus von Jürgen Aleini. He says the Chofetz Chaim, there are many tefillahs that don't reach the Rabbeinu Shalom because of the tumah that hovers over them, spread by the Lashon Hara. Unbelievable. I want to read to you in English an idea from Rabbeinu Yonah, a Rishon. Rabbeinu Yonah says a person shouldn't get depressed because true mitzvahs are sometimes not accepted, but they're not irreversible. The tefillahs that you utter, the mitzvahs that you do, what happens to them? What happens to those mitzvahs? What happens to those beautiful tefillahs that you utter to the Rabbeinu Shalom? Those beautiful tefillahs, what happens to all those tefillahs? Where do they go? So anyone that's familiar with the Sefer Kav Halacha, he brings a Zohar Kodesh, Shimon Bar Yochai, that explains barichas what exactly happens to the tefillahs, who grabs them, who doesn't grab them, what type of tefillahs, all sorts of things going on in Shamayim at the time that you daven. But Rabbeinu Yonah says an amazing thing. He says, imagine if you have a person who speaks Lashon Hara. He says bad things about other people. He speaks negatively about his friend, about somebody else. All of his tefillahs cannot go up. They're blocked. Watch it, all the beautiful tefillahs, the shachris, the mincha, the mariv, the tehillim, davening by the kaisel, davening by Kav Halacha, by Reb Shaila, Gabaldik. But those tefillahs are blocked. They've gone up and they've been blocked right before Kisei HaKavod. Now what? What do we do? Says Rabbeinu Yonah, all of those tefillahs are waiting. They're hovering in Shamayim, waiting for the moment for you to do tshuva. And the moment you do tshuva, and we explained this yesterday, that tshuva can also mean learning the halachas, being mekabel to learn the halachas. That's tshuva in a way, because you're showing the Rabbeinu Shalom you don't want to do this anymore. Says Rabbeinu Yonah, all of those mitzvahs, all the tefillahs come flooding to Kisei HaKavod. That's why sometimes a person finds amazing things. The man to Rosh Yeshiva Zeichat Tzaddik V'Kodesh Livracha Rav Segel said, and he was the one that was mechadesh the Sefer Chofetz Chaim in days. It was his chiddush that every day a person should learn 2 halachas, and he split it up according to the day. 2 halachas a day. It's all split up. You open up a regular Chofetz Chaim in Hebrew, you'll see it's all done. It's all because the man to Rosh Yeshiva Zatzal. And he says an amazing thing. Think about this, Rabbi Yisai. Those of you who have already been mekabel to take learning the halacha is beautiful. Those that haven't, think about this. And those that have, take this as a chizuk. Says the man Rosh Yeshiva is a mamash a goyin otzam at Tzadik Gomel. He said there isn't a family in the world. Listen, Rabbi say, it's his words. There isn't a family in the world that learned these halachas and hasn't seen a Yeshua in their life. You know what that means? What's the pshat? How can he say such a thing? Be a Rebbe Shazach, right? To promise Yeshuas and who knows what. The answer is posh. It's Rabbeinu Yonah. Rabbeinu Yonah says that when a person does tshuva, when a person stops speaking negatively about somebody else, bang! All the tefillahs, all the Torah, all the mitzvahs go flooding to the Kisei HaKavod. And it's a tremendous, tremendous thing. And that's a person has to realize as well. And a person speaks Lashon Hara against other people, they bring accusations upon you. The Rabbeinu Shalom, as we know, acts midah keneged midah. That means if we're busy telling on our friend what he's done wrong, what he's this, all sorts of things, the Rabbeinu Shalom and Shemaim listens to all the prosecutions against you. That means, and again, maybe I speak for myself, most of us wouldn't want the Rabbeinu Shalom to listen to the accusations against us. We'd rather, God, please do me a favor, close your ears, don't listen, we don't need you listening to all the accusations upon us. How do we do that? How do you guarantee that the Rabbeinu Shalom does not listen to anything wrong that you've done? Isn't that incredible? Can you imagine, how much would a person pay? Come on guys, let's talk cash. How much would a person pay to ensure that the Rabbeinu Shalom doesn't listen to anything wrong that he did? That's incredible. You know why? Because you won't be punished for it. Nothing will happen to you. You'll do anything wrong and nothing will happen. Obviously not by kavanah. But how do you do that? How do you ensure this happens? Says the Chofetz Chaim, it's so simple. It's so simple. If you stop speaking Lashon Hara, if you watch the words that come out of your mouth, if you're careful how you speak about other people, and you don't speak about other people, says the Chofetz Chaim, Midah Keneged Midah, the Rabbeinu Shalom will not listen to anything bad against you. That's a tremendous thing. That's an unbelievable haftacha, Rabbi say. That's an unbelievable. Rabbeinu Yonah, the Chofetz Chaim, unbelievable. You want to guarantee that you're going to have that? That's what you have to do. But if you don't, and the moment you speak about somebody else, bang, all the accusations go flooding in. And God says, aha, now we'll deal with you. And that's going to be bad. Again, I talk for myself, obviously, Baruch Hashem, tzaddikim over here. You don't have to worry about these things. But for some of us, it's a little bit difficult. And says the man Rosh Yeshiva, all you have to do is makabel on yourself 2 halachas a day. That's all it is. It's 2 halachas a day. 5 minutes. I can't imagine it takes that much more than 5 minutes. It's absolutely tremendous. I even saw once a whole cheshbon. It says like this, the Rosh Yeshiva brings this down in the Sefer, Year of Adas. Unbelievable. He says, people get upset, how can I do it? What's the big deal? People are mazals on it, it's not really asa, it's okay, it's only a chumrah, all the various different cheshbonis that people make. And he says something tremendous. He says, imagine if a person in the middle of Tekiah Shofar on Rosh Hashanah, at least the first 30 kodesh, the Raisa, right? There's the Baal Korah, there's the Baal Tokeah, they're all in Rosh Hashanah, the Shofar, the Mitzvah Yom. Anybody going to talk in the middle? Chas v'shalom. Is it hard? Nah, I can manage. Why? Because we've been brought up, we've trained ourselves that we don't talk during that time. So the Rosh Yeshiva, it might take a little bit of work, but eventually you train yourself not to speak badly about other people. And he brings a cheshbon. He says, if you would try to speak only 10 less words of bad, obviously we're not discussing stam, talking about against other people, 10 less words a day. That's 3,000 less words of Lashon Hara every single year. Unbelievable thing. It's unbelievable. Again, that's only 10 words. Can you imagine if you do 20, if you do 30? If you watch everything that you say, it's absolutely mind-boggling how much a person can accomplish just by trying, by being makabel to learn the halachas, to know the halachas. It's tremendous. Okay, so I want to go now back into some of the halachas. If anybody assumed that I'm going to go through all the halachas of Hilchos Lashon Hara and Rechilas and Motzei Shemra, no, that's for you to learn by yourselves. I want to give you just a little bit of a hakdama into the inyan. I'll start you guys going, so that Be'ez Hashem, when you open up the Sefer, a lot of the things will be familiar to you. But obviously it's not shaykh for us to go through every halacha. So one of the things we mentioned was that Lashon Hara applies in all forms, and this is very important, not only with dibur, with speech, but it applies with writing. You write a WhatsApp, or an email, or anything else that you write is all included in Lashon Hara, anything you say, and obviously there's no question about it, right? However bad social media is, and we know it's gefährlich bad, many lives have been destroyed, marriages have been destroyed, human beings have been destroyed, businesses, who knows, Shem Yerachem. People the damage you can do. The social media that people have, which they shouldn't, but if they do, can cause much more damage than the Chofetz Chaim could have ever imagined. Because with one click of a button, you can send something around that even you didn't write, or you didn't even take the picture. Somebody else took the picture, somebody else wrote it, but sent it to you. That's great! Let's send it on. Forward. All your contacts. 685 contacts. Bang! Next guy forwards it to his. Within moments, thousands of people have got it because of you. What's going on in Shamayim at that moment? I don't want to know. I don't want to describe, and I don't want to know. But you have to be careful. You get something, you think, what's the big deal? Let's spread it on. Think for a moment. Just like you think about the words that come out of your mouth, think about what you're about to press forward and send to somebody else. Is this something positive about someone else, or is this something negative about someone else? Because if it's something negative about someone else, within moments you could do irreversible damage that's spread around the world in seconds. You don't want to do that. Think, Rabbi Yisai, before you post something, or you put it on your status, or who knows what you do. You just think for a moment, is anyone going to suffer from this? Is someone going to be insulted or embarrassed? Or people are going to look at him in a different light? Who knows what? And even if he's not affected, the fact, as we said, the Chofetz Chaim says, even if nobody got any effect from it whatsoever, it is Lashon Hara min haTorah, from send, forward, whatever you have to press. It's unbelievable. We don't even realize it. I want to mention that because, Lashon Hara, okay, speaking, I'll be careful when I speak, I'm going to be careful not to speak so much, this, that, and the other. Good, Kavaldi. But we don't realize we can do more damage with our phone than we can with our mouths. Because our mouths can only affect the people around here. Maybe they'll take it further. But with a click of our button, you can go around to thousands and thousands and thousands of people within seconds, and it's all because of you. Everybody say, I don't know, and I don't want to say. But what's going on with all your tefillahs? What's going on with all the tefillahs that you ask from the Rabbeinu Shalom, that you want health, and you want happiness, and you want a shidduch, and you want a child, and you want parnasa? There's so much that we want from the Rabbeinu Shalom. Where are those tefillahs? Rabbi said, it's not me. Rabbeinu Yonah says, they're hovering in Shamayim waiting. So if this is negayah to you, and don't tell me it's not, start to think before you speak, and start to think before you press that button send, because it's very dangerous. What about a guy? Someone sends you a clip of a guy, right? Someone tells you something about a guy. Are you allowed to speak about a guy? So the Maisa, the Torah in Parshas Kedoshim brings down, when he brings down the Yisrael Lashon Hara, Leselech Rachel Ba'amecha. Ba'amecha generally means Ba'amcha. Maisa Amcha, the Gemara says. That means someone who's like you, a Yid that's keeping Torah, that's keeping mitzvahs. So l'chayra, according to that, a guy should be mutter. The Medrash paskins it's asa to speak badly about a guy, and the reason that the Medrash said it's asa is because you're going to come to speak about a Yid. That's as I paskin in Medrash, Rabbi say. The Rosh in Sefer Orchos Chaim also brings down the same thing. He says even further, the Rosh, Rabbi say Rishon, says it's asa to slander, speak negatively, badly against any of the Rabbeinu Shalom's creations. That's what the Rosh says. And that's why the Chofetz Chaim says as well, person has to be extremely careful from speaking against a goy. As the Chofetz Chaim brings a Posek in Mishlei. Ha'chaim v'ha'moves b'yad ha'loshen. Posek in Mishlei. Ha'chaim v'ha'moves b'yad ha'loshen. Life and death is in the power of the tongue, is in the koyach of the tongue. Why? Because with your tongue, maybe nowadays, maybe with your finger as well, you can have the koyach to keep someone alive, keep someone going, whether it's panasa, whether it's who knows what, sheduchim, or you can kill someone in a spiritual sense or an emotional sense. And there's so many areas that the Chofetz Chaim points out in Akdama that a person can be over on. However, if a person uses his mouth for bad, so Shem Yerachim, what's going to happen? There's a Gemara in Erichin Tezvav Amud Beis where the Gemara says over here, if a person speaks Lashon Hara, ki ilu koifa be'ika. It's a Chazal, Rabbi say. It's a Gemara. Erichin Tezvav. If a person speaks Lashon Hara, ki ilu koifa be'ika. You know what that means in English? Art scroll it. It means that you deny the Rabbeinu Shalom's existence. There's nobody ever here listening who's going to say, sure, no problem, we'll do that. But speaking Lashon Hara, says the Gemara, it's the same thing. And not only that, we know the Gemara tells us in Yuma, Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, even though there was various of Gilai Raish, Shvichas Tomen, and Avodah Zarah, but Lashon Hara is way worse. Can you imagine? Way worse. Gilai Raish, Shvichas Tomen, Avodah Zarah, and then you've got Lashon Hara, which is above that. That's pretty heavy. And you think to yourself, come on, it's a guzma, it's an exaggeration. No, the Chazal understood what Lashon Hara is the koyach to do, the power it is, and that's how careful a person has to do. It says the Gemara in Erichin Vayta Tezvav, if a person speaks Lashon Hara, what does God say about you? You ever wondered? I'd love to know what Hashem. We all think we all live in a self-conscious world. Is my hair good? How do I look? I have some spots? Like what? We're very self-conscious. You always want to know, what do people think about me? Tell me, what does he think about me? What does God think about you? Ever wondered? What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu think about you? So I'll tell you what the Chazal tell us. Okay? Chazal tell us, a person speaks Lashon Hara, the Rebbeinu Shalom says the following things. Ve'ein ani v'hu yecholim l'dor ba'olam. Me and him can't live in the same world. Whoa. So who's going to go? It's going to be you. That's what the Gemara says, Rabbi Say. Me and you, says God, can't live in the same world because you speak Lashon Hara. You speak badly about my creations, about my wonderful human beings. Rabbi said, think about that before you open up your mouth and you say something bad about somebody else, or before you press those words on the WhatsApp message and you press forward or you type it in. Before you do that, think for a moment, do you want to live in the same world as God? Because if yes, then don't send it. Now, we discussed yesterday a little bit, and we'll go a little bit more. Who's obligated in the Issa? So men, women, relatives, distant friends, husbands and wives, all of these people, rebellion workers, all of these people are included in the Issa. Chofetz Chaim says, Mefurish, people make a mistake, and they think, Telling your wife is mutter. You come home after a hard day in the office, hard day in Koilo. Oh, I'm going to unload. Tell my wife, oh my gosh, what my boss did to me today. I can't believe it. And the co-worker, you should hear what scandal is going on. I heard it in the mikveh this morning. Unbelievable things are going on, right? No. So there's no such heter. You can't tell your wife, right? Even though Ishte Kegufa is so, right? Ishte Kegufa is so be'etzem, it's today's daf yomi. So be'etzem, it should be okay to do such a thing. No. Your wife is included in the Issa just like you, and therefore it is a problem. Now, there could be heterim, which we're not going to go into all the details, but just to give you a little bit of an idea, that if you come home and you're mummish upset with what your partner, with what your boss did to you, and you're going to go to Marav in 10 minutes, you're going to tell the whole world. You're going to get up there and say a drosha about him, Hashem Yirachim. But if you tell your wife, she'll calm you down, because women are much more sensitive to these things. Say that, it's okay, you didn't mean it, blah, 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 blah. You'll calm down, the steam will go down, Baruch Hashem, when you go to shul, you'll be okay, you'll just be able to have Marav like most people. Right? That's the case, then maybe it's mutter. She can't be Mekabel as the MS, that's a different shayla, we'll get to that. But the halacha is, that might be mutter in that case. The Chavetz Chaim says, even if a person died, right? We saw this in the Gemara in Brachos. Even if a person died, you're not allowed to speak Lashon Hara. He's not even hearing him. It's not going to affect him. It's not true. You're not allowed to speak Lashon Hara about him in that case. Obviously, the Chavetz Chaim tells us if a person speaks about a Talmud Chacham or a Rov, someone who's a Talmud Chacham, it's much worse. The Aveira that a person's over and apart from all the Yisrael, Lashon Hara and everything we said, is just been magdali, you've enlarged it to a much bigger scale. Speaking about a Talmud Chacham or a Rov, and the Chavetz Chaim says, imagine you come home after a drosha on a Shabbos morning from the rabbi. By the way, I've seen this with my own eyes. What I'm about to tell you, I've seen this. A guy came home, he always talked, the Rav has no idea what he's talking about. Speaks garbage, he doesn't know what he's talking about. There's no depth to him, doesn't know how to speak. What happens? What happens at that point? Lashon Hara, okay, we spoke about that. But what happens? What's the effect? Whoever he just talked to, whether it was his son, whether it was his wife, whether it was Stam Chavusa, his image of this Rov has now gone down. So now when this Rov says something, doesn't know what he's talking about, doesn't mean anything, he's got no depth to him, kunisht. Terrible. Not only have you spoken Lashon Hara, but you stopped other people from learning from him. You might not have enjoyed the drasha. Okay, it's subject to, how many jokes he said, how many stories he said. I don't know, his delivery wasn't that good. If you didn't enjoy it, keep it to yourself. Because you're destroying somebody else's life when you tell him about it. And I've seen this. I've seen a child, I've saw it over the years. A child, and his father was like this, making fun of Rabbonim, making fun of Gedolim, making fun of the Rov of the Shul. It was gefährlich. His son today is someone that even the father doesn't want to look at. It's gefährlich bad. And I watched it. I can't say that's the reason because I'm not a Novi. But again, Chazal tell us these things. Chavetz Chaim talks about these things. And when a person puts down Rabbonim, Rabbi said, watch this for your own children. You're going to get married and you're going to have a Rov. Or your son is going to have a Rov or a Rosh Yeshiva or a Rebbe or who knows what. What does he know? Shem Yirachim. A boy once said this in class to his Rebbe. He once said this in class to his Rebbe. His Rebbe started saying something. He said, I'm going to tell your father about this. He said, tell my father. My father says, you're a total Amoritz. Could you imagine? Could you imagine what you've done? Forget about yourself. You've done this to future people, future generation, your own children, your own family. That's what you want to bring up your children with? You know how careful you have to be? And don't wait, by the way, till you have your children and they get old enough to do this. Because if you don't stop now and start working on it now, it's not going to get any easier. It only gets harder. So now's the time that a person has to be careful. The Be'eman Chaim tells us how careful a person has to be to sit in a group of gossipers. There's a whole schmoozerai going on. Let me join in. Let's see what they have to say. No, don't sit there. Because you'll be along with one of those people in Gehenna as well. I don't think you want to sit with those people in Gehenna, Rabbi say. Not gishmak. Another thing, Rabbi say, praising that implies something bad. You say something good about someone. We all know what you mean when you praise him. Oh, this guy is so... We all know what you really mean. That's bad. That's called Lashon Hara. Now, a Rasha, someone that's Porik oil, is not careful to the mitzvahs, so be'etzem, you are allowed to speak Lashon Hara about him, okay, with 5 conditions. Okay, we're not going to go through them now. You saw the Aveira yourself, you didn't just hear it from somebody else. You know for sure it's an Aveira, you can't exaggerate even one letter. You know that he doesn't, you know that you wouldn't only do it just not in front of him, you'd also do it in front of him, and you've got no hatred and no ta'alas. Because there's a whole bunch of conditions. Don't come along and say, oh, he's a Rosh, I'm allowed to speak Lashon Hara. No, you've got to fill all the 5 conditions of the Chavetz Chaim, of which we're not going into at this moment of time to understand them and to remember them. But you do have to remember that it's important, there are many conditions that people have Tomorrow, Be'ez Hashem, what I want to go into is when is it absolutely mutter to speak Lashon Hara in certain situations that we'll try to get to. Be'ez Hashem, have a wonderful day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.